First of all, so we've named this India as Dīkṣitar, Muthuswami Dikshitar and the geocultural imagination of India. What we envision by this is that though Dikshitar was born in the south of India, in the heart where the rest of the Carnatic trinity, which includes Shyama Sastri and Tyagaraja, as all of you know, he spent a significant portion of his formative years in Banaras, in Varanasi, learning music there, being trained in the classical Hindustani yoga, and bringing that influence to Carnatic music. So Kannikeswaran is all about is going to explore that idea and thought through this lecture series. And as we get into it, you'll discover a lot more detail about how he ties Dikshitar's work with the kind of sacred geography of India through classical music. And it's going to be a beautiful series. So welcome, everyone. I'm just going to quickly talk about the speaker here. Dr. Kannikeswaran, he's an internationally renowned musician, composer, educator, and scholar. He's known for his contribution to music and for the past, 2 decades and a half. He's been performing Dikshitar's compositions and teaching them, and has done extensive research into his compositions. And he brings that to the fore along with a very good knowledge of temple heritage of India. And with such deep passion, he's also written a book about Dikshitar's work, tying all of this together. And he's done a recording of Muthuswami Dikshitar in the Indo-colonial music style, and that has received acclaim. And he's won numerous awards. He's won grants and even the IIT Best Alumnus Award from Madras. So his acclaim and his list of awards run really long, but we'll get straight into it. And we're just looking forward to this 3-lecture series by Dr. Kanniks. And we're so glad to have you. So welcome and namaste. You can jump right in. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sai, for the kind introduction. And it's really a joy to be here. So we are in the Ganesha Paksha, right? Tomorrow is Ananta Chaturdashi.
Yes.
And so it's a season of festivals and joy. And we all know Dikshitar has enough references to the festival season in his compositions as well. We will touch upon those as we go along. There's a little poll that I'm assuming people have taken, which will give us an idea of the familiarity of people with Carnatic music and with Dikshitar.
So far we have 10 votes, and 6 people say they're very well versed with Dikshitar's work, and 4 people say that they're mildly familiar with his work. So, and 0 people say unfamiliar. So I guess we have a mixed bag. For those of you who haven't voted, if you can't see the link, I'll share it again in the chat. But this is just an idea for you.
Okay, very good. Is my screen and everything okay? And my sound? So if there's any issues, there should be some way of alerting me. So maybe Sai or Nivedita, if you can just jump in and call out if the audio is not good, please. That'll be great. So that way we can go on without any audio disruptions.
Yeah,
okay?
sure.
So,
yeah.
Okay, so with that out of the way, let me get into the presentation. So I'm going to use the PowerPoint off and on. But by and large, just make it very, I'll be using a PowerPoint off and on, and as we delve through some ideas and use some illustrations. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces, and I'm really happy to be speaking through the Bṛhat channel, and I'm really happy that they have taken up the idea of Dikshitar consciousness as we talked about. It's like there's so much about Dikshitar that we do not know, and Dikshitar is accessible to people that are familiar with Carnatic music and with the repertoire, especially if you get deep into some of the compositions of Dikshitar, then you become addicted to them. And even if you go to Kacheri on a casual basis, you do hear compositions of Dikshitar. But there's a huge population all over the world and all over India that's not familiar with Dikshitar at all. So it would be nice to extend this level of the familiarity about him to a wider audience. And that is what I'm hoping to do through these talks and also through the book about which we will talk about in just a little bit. The book is titled Anubhuti, which means an experience of Dikshitar. So let me start sharing my screen and we'll go through the presentation. I just want to make sure I'm closing all the apps so that they don't consume energy. So just 1 second. Okay, cool. Okay, the presentation is all about experiencing Dikshitar from the standpoint of the sacred geography of India. So we have divided it into 3 parts. And here's Muthuswami Dikshitar, and I'm calling it, there's various ways to refer to the presentation. There's so much of celebration going on because this is the 250th year of the birth of Muthuswami Dikshitar. So he was born in 1775. So there's lots of observations happening throughout the world, and there is much to be said about Dikshitar, as we will see as we move on. So today we'll focus on who is Dikshitar. We will place him in the context of Carnatic music, and then we will place him in the pan-Indian context. Then we look at what is Dikshitar's repertoire and what sets it apart. And then we'll get into the anatomy of a composition, and all this will set the stage for the very exciting next part of the presentation, which is the Guru Guha Charita, the life of the composer. Some of you may already be familiar with the number of stories that are going to be featured in this presentation, but let's go with the flow.
Kanniks, I'm sorry to interrupt. If you're sharing the presentation, we are unable to see it.
Okay.
Can you please share
sorry.
it?
Let me do that again.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So like I said, the presentation and the book are titled Anubhuti, and we are referring to Guru Guha 250 in the 250th year of Dikshitar. So, like I said, this is the outline. Who is Dikshitar? Dikshitar in the context of Carnatic music and kacheris. Dikshitar in the pan-Indian context, and then his repertoire and what actually sets it apart. Then we'll get into the anatomy of a composition, and the stories behind the composition, and then we'll get into the Guru Guha Charita, the life of the composer. So this is an image of Dikshitar. But the image of Dikshitar that we are most familiar with is from this portrait. This portrait was constructed by one of the greatest personalities of our generation. His name is S. Rajam, as you can see at the bottom of the slide. So he literally reimagined and created a portrait of what we refer to as the Trinity. And he made this freely available to musicians and others just unconditionally. So the thing is, this has literally resulted in the images of these three Bhagyakaras being etched in our minds permanently. Now, first of all, what is Carnatic music? Now, Carnatic music is the music of the southern part of India, whereas Hindustani music is the music of the rest of India. Now, the golden age of Carnatic music, I mean, the musical tradition itself is pretty old, and it's based on inspiration that's been built over a period of time. For example, the Tevaram music of 1,000 years ago has had its influence on the evolution of the musical style of the South, and so many other influences have had their bearing on how music has evolved over a period of time. Certain ragas were accepted, certain were rejected, and things actually took a lot of solid shape about 200, more than 200 years ago during the time of these three composers. And we don't call them composers, we call them Bhagyakaras, because there were people that created the body of compositions that we hear in a stage today. They created the text as well as the music, and they created text based on their relationship with the divine. All these compositions are in the paradigm of bhakti or surrender, or in the shanta rasa, in a state of peace. All this is, most people in the audience would already know it, that Tyagaraja is one of the greatest devotees of Rama, and this entire repertoire of about 700 compositions or so, much of it is dedicated to Rama, and much of it is in the Telugu language. And Telugu was considered to be an elite language in the Maratha court in Tanjavur. Then Shama Shastri also composed in Telugu. He has a body of about 100 compositions, and all of them are on Bangaru Kamakshi, pretty much on Devi, and most of them are in Telugu, and there's a couple in Tamil and Sanskrit as well. Now, Muthuswami Dīkṣitar, depending on how you look at his compositions, there are more than 450 of his in circulation today. Well, let me put it this way, more than 450 compositions attributed to Dīkṣitar are in circulation today, and you hear them in kacheris. Now, are they popular? There's a lot of interest in Dīkṣitar that has come up in the last 20 years or so, and it's only growing, especially among the youth, also among seniors, I would say. So Dīkṣitar has really started stimulating our imagination. At least the people have started getting their imagination and intellectual curiosity stimulated just by listening to Dīkṣitar's compositions and reading about them and looking them up, thanks to the widespread availability of these material on the internet. Now, the face of Carnatic music is the kacheri. How do you get to listen to these compositions? It is pretty much by attending a kacheri. Now, I don't need to repeat this again, but all of us know that the word kacheri is not a Tamil word. It's not a Sanskrit word. It's a colloquial word that means an office or a court. There are, in the popular world, we even have film songs that refer to kacheri. For example, Paluti Valartha Kili, Param Koduthu Partha Kili, Naan Valartha Pache Kili, Nale Varum Kacheri Ki Selluma. So that is a famous song sung by Sivaji Ganesan, T.M. Soundarajan, once upon a time. So kacheri means a court. So what do you listen to in a kacheri? You listen to a series of compositions along with a lot of manodharma, improvisation that's done on those. So, and there are compositions that have a life beyond kacheris as well. For example, the Pancharatna kritis of Tyagaraja. It's actually a lot of fun singing them. All the way from the Nata kriti to the Sri Raga kriti. See, when I was a child, when I was growing up, we used to listen to, the only way we could listen to the Tyagaraja Aradhana happening in Thiruvayyar was through the state-owned All India Radio, and it used to be broadcast live. And it used to be so exciting. Listen to the congregation start singing Jagadananda Karaka, and there used to be a tinge of sadness when Yandaro Mahabhavulu got over at the end. So that's the kind of excitement that Tyagaraja's compositions stimulate. Now we have Tyagaraja Aradhanas all over the world, and you listen to his compositions everywhere. Now, Dikshitar's compositions are different. First of all, we don't have an Aradhana that's as popular as Tyagaraja's Aradhana. For example, The popularity of Tyagaraja Aradhana is such that it was even featured in a film, Onion, right? In all its grandeur. So you don't have an Aradhana like that for Dikshitar. There is, there are Aradhanas initiatives that have happened and are akhandams on Dikshitar are being held. And Dikshitar's compositions are also not as commonly played in concerts as Tyagaraja's compositions are. So some of the most famous compositions of Dikshitar are, Vatapi Ganapatim Bhaje. Everybody knows that. Maha Ganapatim Manasa Smarami. So now that Vatapi Ganapatim is it's popular to the extent that it has even inspired a khayal which goes lagi lagan pati sakhi sang lagi lagan pati. So it's like Vatapi Ganapati. It's almost like a shadow of that composition. Then you have a film song, Jato Se, by Salil Chaudhary, which was sung by Lata Mangeshkar many years ago. That's also pretty well known. Mahaganapatim Manasa Smarami, it's usually sung as a very fast piece. Mahaganapatim Manasa Smarami. A lot of Chittai Swarams on top of that. It's almost a very popular fusion piece. But apart from these, Dikshitar's compositions are such that when you hear them in the middle of a concert, the mood of the concert completely changes. They are very different. And why are they different? One of the reasons is that Dikshitar's personality itself is different. That his compositions literally do not match the soundscape of the compositions created by Tyagaraja or Shyama Shastri. Let's get back into the presentation. And just prompt me if you feel that I'm going a little slow or fast or whatever. So, like we're saying, Dikshitar's compositions are different. So, if you take him out of the context of the Trinity and look at him for what he expressed through his compositions, one thing we realize is that he celebrated unabashedly the temple heritage of India. I mean, please don't question the accuracy of this map because this was created using Gen AI. Mapping the temples in India, and there's temples all over, regardless of the architectural form. It's just given a generous display of temples on this map. So the only reason I wanted to show this as an illustration is that Dīkṣitar imagined the landscape that he traveled through as a land of temples, and he created a whole set of compositions celebrating them. And let's pause for a moment to look at what kind of a personality he was. Now, if you imagine a person that is good, so if you imagine a person that is well versed in music to start with, well versed in different forms of music, is open to ideas, is open to innovation, is open to expressing himself freely using everything that he has learned, and is very skilled in writing text, conforming to grammar, as well as a lot of other lakshanas, prosodical rules, and so on and so forth, who studied various systems clearly, who was very thorough and meticulous in his approach, and who is a reservoir of knowledge on Vedanta, Shakta Tantra, Agama Shastras, and Vedas, and Jyotisha Shastra, Ayurveda. He was, believe it or not, Dikshitar was trained in Ayurveda, and then who was totally open to sharing his knowledge with everyone. So, I mean, he was a teacher to a fault, in a sense. His compositions are master classes in teaching people, in expressing the essence of Indian knowledge systems. So everything that I mentioned so far, yoga, Ayurveda, Jyotisha, Sangita Shastra, Nritya Shastra, and so on and so forth, we could refer to all of this together as Purna Vidya or Indian knowledge system. So what Dīkṣitar did is kind of distill the essence of all this along with the Sthala Puranas and traditions of places that he visited, placing those Sthala Puranas and traditions in a pan-Indian context and narrating a story in the form of music. So it's one thing enough to distill all these ideas together and actually write an essay. But it's something extraordinary to combine all this in the form of music. And also to stick to a particular tradition within music, and also stick to a whole set of rules, as we're going to see, and also be open to integrating these ideas with other forms of music like colonial music. And I've spoken about this over and over again in many different places. The key thing is to look at Dīkṣitar as a standalone personality. We all along we have clubbed him along with the Trinity. Yes, I mean there's a certain logic in that. I mean these three people caused a renaissance in Carnatic music during the period that they lived in. But Dikshitar is, when you look at him in isolation, what he stood for was much beyond all that. And as we're going to see, it's possible to look at him from a few other contexts also, and we will get that. Let's get back to the presentation. So this slide is just a summary of all the things that I talked about. He was well-traveled also, grounded in Indian knowledge systems, yoga, Advaita Vedanta, Shakta Tantra, knew many languages. He was well studied in literature, Ayurveda, Agama Shastras, the Puranas, the Itihasas, Jyotisha Shastra, Sangeetam, Nritam. Then he had a pan-Indian vision more than anything else. The temple traditions and Puranas, he was open-minded, an innovator, an educator, was always sharing information. This is very important. He had disciples from a wide range of backgrounds, and he was a perfectionist in the work that he created. He was a compassionate guru, as we're going to see, and he was fearless, as we're going to see again. Please pardon the spelling errors and all this. Again, I blame this squarely on the AI Gen AI, which tried to generate this image. I had to coax it to do something like it, but it would do it only with wrong spellings. Okay, so there's two different pictures that we get. One is in the context of Carnatic music, when a composition of Dikshitar is played in the middle of a concert. It causes a change in mood. So I'm not talking about Vatapi Ganapatim or Mahaganapatim. So for instance, Vatapi Ganapatim, for many of us, it's less about the text than it's about ta 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 ta. It becomes that, particularly in an instrumental context, and then the song races towards a Madhyama Kala Sahityam and the Charanam, where it becomes ta 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 ta. So it becomes a show of gimmickry in the raga Hamsadhwani. There's a certain energy to it, but it completely takes you away from the context of what Dikshitar was trying to say. And I'm not referring to those compositions when I say the mood of a concert changes when Dikshitar's composition is performed. For instance, in the middle of a concert, if you have something like Tyaga Raja Yoga or something like that, or Rangapura Viharam or Parimalaranga Natham Bhajeham or so there's more that you can talk about. Or Srinathadi Guru Guho Jayati Jayati or Chintaye Maha Lingamurtim Chidrupa Spurtim Sukirtim Chinta. So the list goes on endlessly. And another thing to note is The compositions are different. They are paced a lot more slowly, and they have a certain section inside them called the Madhyamakala Sahityam. And as soon as it comes, there is what the word we use almost like a salasalap. It's a Tamil word. There's a feeling of recognition. For example, Muni Sankata Harana Govinda, when that line comes, or when Shiva Shaktyadi Sakala Tattva Swarupa Prakasham, or even in some not well-known songs like Sri Guru Guha Pujita Bṛshatu Shrita Jana Rakshana Nipunantaranga, or in Neerajakshi, Varijapade Bharate Taraya Mam Tatvapade Neera Jakshika. So there is a distinct head nod of recognition when the Madhyama Kala Sahityas happen, and this is something we do not see in the compositions of other Bhagyakaras. So how do you explain the difference? So this is the line that I used to explain the difference, and I'm going to read it out here. The creations of Dīkṣitar in Sanskrit, in a stunning range of melodies, represent an unspoken story. The story of India's temple heritage, a complex tapestry of pan-Indian ideas interwoven with local traditions, puzzling palindromes, archaic prosodical constructs, as well as deep Hindu philosophy. What does all this translate into? So you look at Dikshitar's compositions, almost all of them are in Sanskrit. They use all kinds of ragas, the Marga ragas in the Venkatamukhi tradition, as well as Desiya ragas, which had filtered their way down to the south, and other ragas that he had heard over a period of time. Most of them are site specific. Every composition of a good chunk of compositions of Dikshitar are tied to a particular site or a temple. There is a distinct, we use the word sayal in Tamil, distinct shade of Hindustani music, especially in some of the ragas that are employed, as well as the structure of the compositions, as we will see tomorrow. They are slow paced, majestic, like the gait of an elephant. And they, like I said before, almost all of them are based on the system of ragas propounded by an older musicologist by name Venkatamukhi. They exhibit a lot of prosodical features. And then some of them are based on colonial tunes. And they are not in praise of one particular deity. In fact, a couple of his compositions are on the Nirguna Parabrahmam. And the rest of his compositions are in the 6 forms of worship as seen in Shankara's Advaita. They are majestic. Many of them are the 6-beat Rupakatalam, and they have a unique compositional structure with the Madhyama Kalam that we just talked about. And many of them are just 2-part compositions, just the Pallavi and the Anupallavi alone, kind of like the bandishes of Hindustani music. And there's several groups of compositions, as we will see as we move along. So there's a range of compositions. So I can play some on YouTube and just show you what they are like. So we talked about Hindustani music, and I'm just going to play you one example, but I want to show you some of the diversity that you see in his compositional content. So let's just go to YouTube for a second. So here's Neerajakshi. Let me stop and enable the audio on the share. So this is one. Let's look at a few others. This is a well-known composition on Kanchi Kamakshi, sung by M.S. Subbulakshmi. So here's another example. Now let's look at a totally contrasting example here. This is in Anand Bhairavi. And here's something that's totally different. So as you can see, there's tremendous diversity in the compositions. And Dikshitar was a tireless pilgrim. So he traveled all over India. as we will see in the Guru Guha Charita chapter that's going to follow, once he completed his sadhana in Banaras, where he spent 5 years of his life, he traveled down south, and the rest of his life was as a Vagyayakara, where he traveled all the way from Tirutani in close to the border with Andhra Pradesh, all the way from there to Ettayapuram, which is in the deep south near Tirunelveli. And what he did as a Vagyayakara during this trail was visit temple after temple and document their traditions in incorporating a very wide knowledge base, both from a musical standpoint as well as from a philosophical and other just knowledge-based standpoints. So, like I said, let me repeat it again. The creations of Dīkṣitar, they represent a stunning range of melodies, the unspoken story of India's temple heritage, a complex tapestry of pan-Indian ideas, puzzling palindromes, local traditions, and prosodical constructs, and deep Hindu philosophy. Much of what we know is from the archives of his nephew, actually his brother's grandson. His name is Subbarama Dīkṣitar, who created this work called the Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini. So, so this is what the Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini, published by the Music Academy in the 60s, looks like. And this is the English version of it, which was published later, just about 15 years ago. So these are very important resources in addition to the whole range of compositions of Dīkṣitar documented in works such as these. So we have a lot to look back. Let's get back into the presentation. So there's a lot of resources available, but the primary one is the Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini. And like I said, there's about more than 450 compositions that are attributed to Dīkṣitar, and about 50% of them are documented in the Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini, and the others are outside of it. And about 8% of the compositions are based on colonial tunes, and that's a whole different chapter all by itself. I've made a film called The Colonial Interlude, and that explores the story, and we've been screening it in different places, and we hope to screen it again during the December season, this time in Chennai and other places. So once again, let's go back to the sacred geography of India. So India is a land of temples. And South India in particular is home to temples that were, the temple tradition of southern India is huge. Usually as NRIs, we living outside the country, we suddenly realize the value of what we have inherited in terms of tradition. And when we go visit India for a 2-week period, about 3 days of it are packed with temple visits. And it's usually running from one temple to another, looking at the gopurams, taking pictures and sharing them on social media and so on and so forth. Virtually everybody, every NRI living abroad has done that. And there's a lot of tours that are arranged, and not without reason, because what you can see and what you can learn is just phenomenal. Look at this, for example. This is the Madurai temple. The towers here, this is the these towers were constructed probably not more than 500 years ago, as this is all actually a reconstruction of a much more ancient temple. Madurai has been around since the Sangam period, and the temple has been visited by poets back in the middle of the first millennium. They've sung songs in praise of this temple. Then here's Srirangam. This is one of the holiest, this is probably the holiest site, the most sacred site in the Sri Vaishnava tradition. This is the tallest temple tower, and this is probably the largest temple complex in India. And so this is near Trichy. And the next one I'm showing you is Tiruvannamalai. Tiruvannamalai is Arunachala. What we know about Arunachala is, Rajinikanth's movie Arunachala probably brought a lot of prominence to the place Arunachala. Then apparently it was after only in the last 25 or 30 years that the Giri Valam, that the circumambulation of the hill in Tiruvannamalai has gained so much of prominence. See, Tiruvannamalai is where my grandfather lived. My father was born there nearby, and his childhood was spent there. So we've been there a few times, but the Tiruvannamalai that I've seen in the 60s or the 70s, or even in the 90s, it's very different from what it is right now, thanks to its newly acquired popularity. So, what does it take to experience Tiruvannamalai? So, like I said before, 3 days and 25 temples is a very packed way to see temples. To get the feel of a temple, you got to live there, you got to experience what is going on. And so let's look at what is involved in Tiruvannamalai. First of all, it's considered to be one of the Panchabhuta Sthalas. What do we mean by that? See, our bodily existence, our body is made of the five bhutas: wind, water, fire, space, and earth, or Prithvi, Jalam, Agni, Vayu, and Akasham. So the entire scheme of existence, the entire universe, can be broken down into this model of elements, the five elements. So everything that you see existing in the universe is nothing other than something that's constituted by the five bhutas, the Pancha Mahabhutas. And Shiva is usually described as a manifestation. Shiva manifests himself in the form of the Pancha Mahabhutas, or divinity itself. The source of our existence is the cosmic energy, or Omkara, as we call it. In the unmanifest form, it's just energy. But in the manifest form, if you imagine the billions and billions of cosmic bodies, the satellites, the planets, the solar systems, the stars themselves, the galaxies, and I mean, it's just infinite. So although there may be parallel universes, universe is just one. The entirety of creation is just a manifestation of the cosmic energy, which is the Paramatma, as we refer to as. And the manifested existence can be broken down into the Panchabhuta model. And one of the elements is fire. And the hill in Tiruvannamalai, or the red hill, Arunachala, is considered to be a manifestation of Shiva in the form of the element fire. And there are Puranic stories that present it in a way that actually makes you remember this. And when you look at Tiruvannamalai, when you go to Tiruvannamalai, it makes you remember the legend and makes you be conscious of your place in the scheme of creation or existence itself. So the story goes that there was an argument between Brahma and Vishnu as to who the more powerful one was. Then immediately in front of them, Shiva appeared in the form of a fiery column of light. It extended all the way up and extended all the way down, and nobody could fathom where it started and where it ended. So Brahma and Vishnu searched for the origins of this fire, and they could not fathom it. And then Shiva appeared out of it. So he's referred to as Lingodbhava. And this is one of the Sthala Puranas that is associated with Tiruvannamalai. Tiruvannamalai actually translates into Arunachalam in Sanskrit. So Shiva here is referred to as Arunachaleshwara, and Parvati here is referred to as Unnamulayal or Apita Kuchammal. So she is that mother who is wedded to Shiva, who is full of nourishment for the universe that's been, and for all the Jivarashis that are in the universe. Okay, now, like we said, it's a Panchabhuta Sthalam. So Teja or Agni is the sthalam that is the element that corresponds to Tiruvannamalai. Now, it's a huge temple campus. So you have several towers and several prakaras, and it will take days to experience the grandeur of this temple. It's taken ages to get this constructed to the form it is right now. And so this is the 1,000-pillared hall in the campus of the temple. It's a picture that I'd taken more than 20 years ago. And this is the processional deity of Arunachaleshwara. This is actually Soma Skanda, which is Sa Uma Skanda. So you see Shiva here, and you see Uma, Parvati, and you see Skanda. You don't see Skanda, who's hidden in between the two of them. And he is the one that's taken out in processions. There are many images of Soma Skanda within the Tiruvannamalai temple itself. In fact, any Shiva temple that you go to will feature Soma Skanda as the Utsava Murti. So you see Shiva being taken out in processions here. So it's a very grand spectacle. It's a 10-day period in the month of Kartikai, which concludes on the full moon day when a lamp is hit on top of the Arunachala hill to commemorate the legend of the Lingodbhava. And here's the 5th day of the Utsavam, where Shiva is carried out, Soma Skanda is carried out on the Rishabha Mount. Rishabha Vahanam. And this is a huge Rishabha Vahanam. And you can see YouTube clips where people show how arduous a task is to actually make Shiva sit on the Rishabha Vahanam. I believe there's a ramp or something that's used to actually take the image up and then place him on the Vahanam, then tie it together and carry it out in procession. So it's a huge deal. And the Rishabha Vahana Utsavam happens multiple times during the 10 days. On the fifth day, it's the silver Rishabham. On the 10th day, it's a golden Rishabham. And during the day, there's another Rishabham. And this is Manika Vachakar, one of the devotees of Shiva, who is celebrated very much in Tiruvannamalai, thanks to his visit there, and is spending time writing the Tiruvempavai. Tiruvempavai is a collection of 20 verses which are chanted in the month of Margazhi. And Manika Vachakar is someone who is considered to have become one with Shiva, the state of Sayujya. So he is very much celebrated in the Shaiva Siddhanta tradition, and this is Nataraja coming out in the month of Margazhi on Margazhi Tiruvadrai. And there's Murugan. Skanda holds a special place in Tiruvannamalai. One of the reasons is the poet Arunagirinatha, who simply gets his name from Tiruvannamalai because Tiruvannamalai is the place, Arunachala is the place where he got his realization. And Murugan appeared to him from a pillar, so where he is referred to as Kambattadi Ilayanar. So there's a Tirupugal that goes with it. Adala Seda Narada Akila Meru Meedada Abhina Kalita Nada Abarodu Andre Adira Visi Vadadum. So Arunagirinatha was a prolific composer, a creator of verses in Tamil in praise of Skanda. So he is also, he and Murugan are of great importance here. Now let's look at the kriti Arunachalanatham Smarami Anisham. Now Dikshitar visited Tiruvannamalai, and what he has done is he's condensed all his experiences into this composition. And this composition holds a special place in my heart because of our connection to Tiruvannamalai, and also just because of the way it is constructed and the way it flows. Let me just quickly sing it to you. Arunachala Natham Smarami Anisham Apita Kuchamba Sametam. That's a pallavi of the composition. So what it means is Arunachala Natham Smarami Anisham. There's a significance associated with this. Smarami. Dikshitar uses the word Smarami in other compositions as well. For example, Smaramyaham Sada Rahum. Of course, this composition is not notated in the SSP. Then we have, of course, he uses Chintayami as well. Siddhi Vinayakam Anisham Chintayami. So the word Anisham means a couple of things here. One is I always think of Arunachalanatha. It also means I think of Arunachalanatha, who is a form of nightlessness, who is always bright, because this is a Tejomaya Sthala, right? And he's a consort of Apita Kuchamba. Now, what is the result of this Smarana? There is a saying that goes, Smaranat Kaivalyam. So if you think of Tiruvannamalai, if you think of Arunachala, you're granted mukti, you're guaranteed mukti. So he says that, Smaranat Kaivalya Pradacharanaravindam. Now, Kaivalyam is the concept of moksha in the Advaita tradition. Kevalam or Kaivalyam. So the word Kaivalya appears in other compositions of Dīkṣitar as well. Like even in the Ganapati composition, Avinasha Kaivalya in the Sri Mahaganapati Ravatumam, or even in the Sri Raga Kriti in praise of Varalakshmi, Sri Varalakshmi. Kevala Gunashalinye, so on. And then Kaivalya Vitarana Pare Kakshita Phala Pradakar. So Kaivalya comes in many compositions. So, but here what he says is that when you think of Arunachala, you're guaranteed mukti. and his feet are like the lotus. And Taruna Aditya Koti Sankasha Chidanandam. He's nothing other than Satchidananda, the Paramatma of existence, what I just explained before, the cosmic energy of existence which manifests itself as the entire universe. It is nothing other than Sat, truth, Chid, consciousness, Ananda, unlimited bliss. It's not just the joy, it is just bliss which has no opposite at all. Taruna, then he is as bright as crores of suns, Suryas. Then Karuna Rasadi Kandam. He is the embodiment of mercy. Karuna Rasadi Kandam Sharanagata Sura Brindam. He is visited by scores of devotees, the yogis, the siddhas, the munis, plus also multiple devatas, Sharanagata Sura Brindam. Then the next one is Aprakrita Tejo Maya Lingam. It's unearthly. It is not something that you can see as an earthly body. It's Aprakrita Tejo Maya Lingam. It is nothing other than luminescence. Adyat Ati Adbhuta Karadhrita Sarangam. I'm going to show you an image of him holding a deer in the form of Somaskanda. That's a very standard representation. And Sarangam, that's the name of the deer. That's one of the names for the word deer in Sanskrit. And Saranga also corresponds to the raga here. Then Aprameyam Aparnabja Bringam. Now, there's a story about Bringi Muni wanting to worship Shiva alone to the exclusion of Parvati, and Parvati kept getting closer and closer to Shiva, but the Muni took the form of a bee and just chose to circle around Shiva. And not wanting to take this any longer, Shiva and Parvati absorbed into each other and became Ardhanarishwara. So Bringi Muni had no option other than to circumambulate both Shiva and Shakti together and attain his Sadgati at that point in time. So and this is also celebrated. The union between Shiva and Parvati in the form of Ardhanarishwara is celebrated during the 10-day Brahmotsavam. And look at the pun here. Bringam also could be a passing reference to the Muni as well. Then Arudo Tunga Vrishaturangam. So I just mentioned that a little while ago. That is Arudo Tunga Vrishaturangam. So the very act of ascending the Rishabha Mount itself is something which is a significant part of the 10-day Brahmotsavam. Then Viprotama Viseshantarangam. See, the Antarangam, the oneness between Manikavachakar and Shiva is called out in this line. If you go to a place called Tirupperundurai, it's you have the formless form of Shiva there, and Manikavachakar himself is taken out during all processions in the form of Shiva. So there is virtually no difference between through the Jnana Margam, he actually becomes one with Shiva. And Manikavachakar's Tiruvembavai is a big deal in Tiruvannamalai, so that's what is called out in this line. Veera Guruguha Tara Prasangam. So we just saw the presence of Guruguha in the form of Skanda, not only in the Soma Skanda image, but also this prominent presence as Kambattadi Ilayanar and the significance of Varuna Girinatha here. And Swapradeepa Mauli Vidhrita Gangam, the effulgent head of Shiva bears the Ganga. And Swaprakasha Jita Somagni Patangam. The Swaprakasha, the self-effulgence of Shiva excels anything else, any cosmic body that you can imagine. So what you see here, if you just pause to think of everything that has been said here and go back to what I said before, Dikshitar was a tireless traveler, and what he does is, you can see the local Puranas, the Aruda Uttunga Rishaturangam, Viprotama Vishesha Antarangam. All these are local traditions that are blended with the grand scheme of things. The Aprakrita Tejo Maya Lingam, the Vayu Purana, I believe the Linga Purana and the Kurma Purana, which give you the story of Lingodbhavar. Adyatbhuta Karadhrita Sarangam. It's one of the standard iconographic features of Shiva. He bears a man and the Maru Ayudam. Man is the Sarangam. Then Aprameyam, he was beyond recognition. That's part of the pan-Indian tradition. Then Veera Guruguha Tara Prasangam, that's local here, but also the Guru Guha Mudra, which is a stamp that he puts on every composition of his. Then, so all these are integrated here, but the key thing I see in this composition is the reference back to our source of existence, which is nothing other than Sat Chit Ananda. So there is Sanskrit here. There is all this is expressed in a language that somebody from Kashmir could understand. Pan-Indian traditions are integrated into the local traditions here. Festival traditions are described. His experience in Tirunamala is expressed without any personal, without expression of any personal feelings or anything here. A lot of details are contained in this composition. So I would call this an archetype of a Dikshitar compositions. And this is what we just dissected now was the anatomy of a Dikshitar composition, just from the content of the lyrics and the musical content, but there's more to it. If you look at the second syllable of the Pallavi, Arunachala, it's called the Edugai in Tamil, or the Dvitiya Aksharam, and the second syllable in the Anupallavi, both are Ra, right? Aruna, Smarana, Taruna, Karuna, etc., etc. So this is a prominent, so this rhyme across two sections is referred to as Dvitiya Akshara Prasam. And then the repetition of certain consonant sounds just for the sake of alliteration, which flows naturally into the song. Nothing is squeezed in. Plus, there's also a rhyme at the end of every line. It's called the Antya Akshara Prasam. I would like to go through this in detail. We'll do that in the next class with another composition as an example. But I just wanted you to get an idea. Plus, also the Madhyama Kala Sahityam that I said before. So when the composition is going slowly like this, Tunga Vrishaturangam Viprotama Viseshantarangam. See that the text is a lot more densely packed here. And this is a point where you will notice the maximum number of head shakes in the audience, almost like a reckoning. This has come, the final part of the charanam has come. That is where Dikshitar sums up everything that he has. And in a lot of cases, you will see the Guru Guha Mudra or the seal of the composer in this last part of the composition. So that in a sense is the anatomy of this. So this is all a description of the Tejomaya Lingam, Arunachalam, Pitakuchamba, Smaranath, Kaivalyam, all that can be studied, meditated upon just by looking at this picture at the magnificent temple, the hill, the Jyoti on top, which is lit and seen for miles around. This is Soma Skandamurti, probably exhibited in a museum. You see Shiva, Uma, and Skanda in between. Skanda is not seen in the Alankara. He's hidden by the Alankara in Tirunamala. Then you see the Man, the deer that's held by Shiva here. Here's the story of Bringi and Shiva, and you can see Parvati huddling close to Shiva as he is trying to worship Shiva alone, and then she becomes one with him in the story of Vardhanarishwara. The image of Vardhanarishwara in Tiruvannamalai is brought out only once a year on Kartika Purnima at the conclusion of the 10-day Brahmotsavam. Here's the Rish. Arudo Tunga Vrishaturangam. Then this is Viprotama Viseshantarangam. Here is Veera Guru Guhatara Prasangam. Then on the hill itself, Swapradipa Mauli Bidritagangam Swaprakasha Jita Somagni Patangam Marunachala. So all this and a lot more will be described in this book, Anubhuti, which is coming up shortly. There should be a link to pre-orders as well. We'll share it in tomorrow's talk. And so this is a book. It's titled Anubhuti Experiencing Muthuswami Dikshitar. We'll talk more about the book in the next class. I'm open to questions. We are at 10:35. I don't know how much longer we can go on, but I'm happy to take any questions at this point in time. Yes. Any questions? Nothing?
So you can also put your questions in the chat and I'll read them out in case anyone's shy. And we'll wait. If anyone has questions, please feel free to unmute and ask. In the meantime, I do have a question. The bronze that you
Yeah,
showed in
please.
the image, which temple is that in?
Which one? The
The
bronze?
bronze that you showed of Dikshitar, yeah.
That's probably, that should be in Tiruvarur itself.
Tiruvarur, okay.
Tiruvarur, yeah.
I'm yet to go. I've always wanted to go.
Yeah, if you've not been to Tiruvarur, we'll talk at length about Tiruvarur tomorrow.
Definitely,
And,
lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. Ramya Hariharan says, have you noted that in the Navagraha Kritis, Vaidyanatha Kshetram are mentioned, but not for others, for Mars alone?
Yeah, I've discussed
Not
that.
sure. Yeah.
That's been discussed in detail in the book. The reason for that.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have one question?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Please.
Vishnu is avoided the major raga, repeat the major raga.
It's a bit unclear. Are you able to? Yeah. So can you please type your question because it's a bit unclear, the audio.
Yeah, please type it in. Yeah, we will send an email with a link to this. So let me answer the questions. Was he self-taught in Sanskrit? Probably not, but he could have. Just given his genius, he could have easily been self-taught. But he went through formal training in a lot of aspects of Purna Vidya, literature, and all that stuff as mentioned by his nephew. So Subbarama Dikshitar is a window. Dikshitar's nephew is a window into the world of Dikshitar. Just like how in the 12 Alvars you have Madhura Kavi Alvar, who is a window into Nammalvar. Subbarama Dikshitar is a window into Muthuswami Dikshitar. So he speaks about the education that Dikshitar received, whether it was the field of music or literature or even Ayurveda, Jyotisham, and so on and so forth, that includes Sanskrit. The next question is the origins of the Notiswara compositions. Yes, that's one of my favorite topics. I made a film on that, and some people in this audience have actually watched it. And the video that you saw of 150 of us singing Santatam Pahimam, there was actually a performance in Cincinnati where there were about 100 Indians and 50 people of non-Indian origin singing Santatam Pahimam together, along with a large orchestra. And the movie speaks of the origin of how Dikshitar listened to them and how he continued to convey his message that he conveys in other compositions, a message which is centered on Advaita, how he extends it to his Notiswara compositions as well. So the key thing I want to leave people with today itself is that Dikshitar has a message that he conveys through compositions. That is, he just the nature of existence itself, Satchidananda. That's what he zeroes on. And regardless of whether it's a Hindustani raga or whether it's an Ananda Bhairavi kind of a raga, regardless of the deity that's being celebrated, and regardless of whether it's a colonial tune or not, his message is intact. So I just want to emphasize it over and over again. Yes, Chintayami Santatam. There's a composition by Balamurali Krishna on Dikshitar. Yes, I'm aware of it. I've discussed that composition with Sri Balamurali Krishna when I met him, when I had the fortune of meeting him many years ago. Dikshitar's notation scriptures. Well, as you saw the Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini, what we have, there are internet versions of it. There's a book version of it. There's a Tamil version of it. There's a Telugu version of it. The whole thing is available in English script as well. So the SSP is freely available, and that's the official source of the compositions of Muthuswami Dikshitar.
Right.
Maratha
But I just have a question
Peshwas
here. Sorry to interrupt. Before you go to the next question, I was going to say, though the books are kind of compile his work, I think primarily it was passed on through orally, right? Through his students and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that is all. See, our the Indian tradition is what we call Shruti,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So I just mentioning
it's
that in
not
this
a
context.
yeah, it's not a written tradition. So anything you learn
Exactly.
is from your guru. You learn things through
Yes,
the
yes,
oral tradition. The written traditions back those up. So as a point of reference that you can go back to.
yes,
And the written tradition is a documentation of the manner in which the documenter has heard those compositions. And what I learn is what I learn from my guru. What I teach is what my students learn from me, and so on and so forth. The oral tradition is a very powerful one. Unlike Western music, where everything is scored and ready, and you can just jump to a concert and start playing. When you have 100 people playing, it automatically sounds good because you have to bear fidelity to what is written there, because you don't have gamakas there, and you have a concept of
yes,
harmony, which is lining up
yes,
layers and layers of music, right? So which we don't have that in Indian music. Yeah. So
yes,
thanks,
yes,
Amit.
yes.
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
question. Can I go?
Yes, please. Please.
Sir, Namaskaram, Srivatsan here.
Namaskar. Namaskaram, Srivatsan. Yes.
Yeah. See, any of the descendants of Dikshitar Swami, are they in there right now, in current times?
Yes. Dikshitar's, I've met the descendants of Dikshitar's brother,
Okay.
which is I've met Ambi Dikshitar's grandson. They are there, and I've had some conversations with them as well, and have nothing but total respect for them. I've met and interacted with them. In fact, one of them happened to be in the audience when we screened my movie in India last year.
And Dikshitar being a prolific composer than the other three
Yeah.
Vagyakaras, I believe all musicians should hold a what you call a festival like Tyagaraja Kirtanas every year. I think that is most pending and will be a humble tribute to him.
Yeah, those have already started happening. There's something called a Dīkṣitar Akhandam that happens in Ettayapuram, which is in near Tirunelveli. And but the thing is, you don't have a body of compositions like the Pancharatna Kirtanas, which immediately kick off a feel of festivity, right? Dikshitar's compositions are all very, very meditative. In fact, some Vidwans have told me that if you sing two slow Dikshitar compositions in a row in a kacheri, the energy of the kacheri comes down. And it may be true because you go off into a state of meditation. Then after that, if you sing something fast, it doesn't appeal to you because it seems kind of trivial. So the real forte of Dikshitar is the ability to teach you something and transport you to a different place. So many of the compositions may not even belong to kacheris. They could be fine for congregational rendering. For instance, the Kamalamba Navavarna Kritis, there's 11 of them. If you sing them together for like an hour and a half, first of all, it requires a lot of stamina, energy, sincerity, and you will be in a different space altogether. So I don't know how it will work out for a congregation of 1,000 people singing it together or something like that. But we can come up with creative ways to commemorate him. You're absolutely right, because his composition is so invaluable. It needs to be extended beyond the traditional Carnatic music circles, and people need to know about it. Know about them at least. At least now, some Hindustani singers have started singing them. So, so anyway, I hope that answered the question.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, of course. Yeah, anything else? Any other questions? Yeah, about the link to the movie about Notiswara. So we are going to screen it in a few more places on a big screen. But before the end of the year, we will have an event where we will actually make it available on YouTube for people to watch, being the 250th year of Dikshitar. Yes. Any other questions? Yeah, are there any Dikshitar compositions on Nada Upasana itself? So, like, he has described Devi as Dvi-saptati Raganga Ragamodini, one who delights in the scheme of 72 Raganga Ragas of Venkatamaki. So there are references to music, and and there are so many references to Devi in Dikshitar's compositions, and Devi herself is of the form of Nada. If you just read the Lalita Sahasranama, I believe it's Shloka 70 or something. Narayani Nam Nada Rupa, and so on and so forth. So the divine is in the form of nadam. This nadam is actually celebrated by Tyagaraja in a composition which remarkably sounds like a Dikshitar compositions in its lyrical content, not in its flow. Like Sadyo Jatadi Panchavatraja Sarigama Padani Vara Sapta Swara Vidyalolam. Shiva is one who delights in the sound of the seven swaras which emanated from his own face, own five faces, which start with Sadyojata. So there's a phenomenal sculpture of the five-faced Shiva. Yeah, Panchamukha Sadashiva, which is or
Yes.
Trimurti Sadashiva in Elephanta Caves.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you watch my video called Raga Darshan, which is a celebration of India, Sadhyo Jatadi comes in Mukhari also. Yes, correct. You're right. There's a video of mine called Rag Darshan, which we can share the link with all the people that came to this talk. It is a Raga Malika in 75 ragas, and one of those is Chittaranjani, which has visuals corresponding to Elephanta Caves and the Trimurti Sadashiva. So it's called Rag Darshan, and within that there's a segment called Sacred Geography, which really traces the sacred geography of India, particularly the last line, which deals with the seven moksha dhams, moksha kshetras all over India. Now again, the 75 ragas in it have raga mudras and at least or at least the chaya raga mudras referring to the various ragas. For example, Ayodhya, Kashi, Kanchi, Mathuro, Jayani, Maya, Puryadi, Kshetresim, Mokshadayani. So Puryadi, right? The name of the raga is Purya, and so on and so forth. We'll share the
Lovely.
link for you.
Yes, yes. And we'll just email it to everyone later. If you share it with us, we'll also share it in the chat once you share it with us. I think we missed a question here. What is the role of Maratha Peshwas in patronizing his art? Do you know if there's a link or?
Yeah, see, Dikshitar lived, was in Tanjavur during the time of the ruler Saravoji as he's called. Okay, so Saravoji was a descendant of the Maratha ruler. Shivaji established a Maratha kingdom in Tanjavur. The first ruler was Ekoji, his half brother. And there were descendants like Amarasimha and all that. And then Saravoji I was followed by Amarasimha, then Saravoji II, during which time culture took on a very important place in society. So there's no direct evidence of Saravoji sponsoring Dikshitar, but the thing is, he, in his court, lived a set of four dance acharyas who were considered to be the foremost acharyas in the Bṛhat tradition, even by Dikshitar. The four of them learned music from Dikshitar. So indirectly, the support of Saravoji must have reached Dikshitar. There's no direct evidence of him receiving sponsorship from the Maratha court. And Dikshitar does mention Sarabendra in one of his compositions. I think the raga is Navamani.
Composition dedicated to Venkatesha Bhupala and Megharanjani Raga, I think, where perhaps it has a reference to the local emperor.
Yeah, that's a different emperor. That is like Venkatesha Yeddappa Bhupati Mashraye Maninisa. So that is a composition that was created by Dikshitar in the last stages of his life. Almost coincidentally with the Amrita Varshini composition. The story goes that, and we will see that story in the next lecture, that Dikshitar realized that the well-being of his brother was taken care of by the Raja of Ettayapuram, whose name was Venkateswara Yettappan. So he creates a composition in praise of Venkateswara Yettappa Bhupati. So that was in the last stage of his life, and that was not Sarabendra. He was not a Maratha king. Yeah, hope that answers the question.
Sir, I have one question, sir.
Please. Yes.
As Dikshitar composed in all the 72 Melakarta ragas?
Okay, first of all,
Yes,
again, we'll touch upon. Yes, hello, sir. Narayan, sir. Thank you for attending the talk, and I'll answer this question right away. First of all, Melakarta. We all run into the Melakartas at some point in time. Melakartas have gotten popularity also thanks to film music, thanks to people like Ilayaraja, who is composed in ragas like Rasika Priya, like Sangeetame Devame Saregama. Then he does a Shruti Vedam on this. Nayanam Kadodu Mapadani Sa 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 Mapadasani becomes Maya Malavagala with a Shruti Vedam. Then he has a composition. Raghavardhani irukku. And then there's also Kanakangi in Modam Yennum Thiyayalli Tanda Tanda Darara. That song is there. So the Mari Melakartas have acquired popularity in popular music. Okay. Now Melakarta, there are two different schemes. The original scheme was made by a musicologist by name Venkatamakhi. That scheme is we refer to that as the Raganga Raga scheme. And the Dikshitar family subscribed to the Raganga Raga scheme. Now there was another musicologist called Govindacharya who modified the Raganga Raga scheme, kind of simplified it and converted it and created a set of 72 scales or 72 Melakarta scales. Melam is a scale, Karta, so Banata, it makes it actually. Melathai undu panikkirathu. So on the scales, 72 scales irukku. So those are the 72 Melas versus the 72 Ragangas, the original Ragangas, which the Dikshitar family, starting all the way from his father, extending all the way back to Muddu Venkatamakhi, followed all the way to his Dikshitar's brother's son, Subbarama Dikshitar. So, and also all his disciples like Tanjavur Ponnaya and other people. So this is called the Raganga Raga tradition. The Ragangas are different from the Melakartas. For example, Raganga number 2 is called Penadyuti, which goes Sari ma pa da pa ni ni sa sa ni da pa ma ga ri sa. In the Melakarta scheme, Mela number 2 becomes Sari ga ma pa da ni sa sa ni da pa ma ga ri sa. That is called Ratnangi. So Penatyuti in Dikshitar scheme is different from Ratnangi in Govindacharya or Tyagaraja scheme. Now Dikshitar has composed in, I'm going to say, almost all of the 72 Ragangas. There are 4 that are missing in the documented tradition, but they are available in the oral tradition. The missing ones are Rama Manohari and then Chamaram, which is what we refer to in the Melakarta system as Shanmukha Priya. Of course, you have Siddhi Vinayaka Manisham, which is Chamaram. Even the Ketu Kriti, Guru Guha Chamara Bharanam, right? That's the Raga Mudra that comes in there. Then you have Shiva Pantuvarali. And in the oral tradition, we have a couple of compositions. Pashupatishwaram and also Satyanarayanam and so on and so forth. And there's one more. I think it is Dhuni Bina Sarjam, I think. I don't remember the name of the composition right now. But that's so 4 ragas, 4 ragangas are not documented in the SSP, but there are kritis attributed to Dikshitar in all of the 72 ragangas. So literally, he is the first person to have documented all of the 72 ragangas. Then it was after his time that Mahavidinatha Iyer or Vaidinatha Shivan wrote the 72 Mela Raga Malika. And it was only in this century, no, the last century, that Kotishwara Iyer, as well as Balamurli Krishna, as well as a lot of other people have composed in the 72 Mela scales. So Narayan sir, I hope that answered the question.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, excuse me.
Yeah.
Namaste. Sir, you mentioned that Rama Manohari hasn't been documented in the Sangeeta Sampradaya Pradarshini.
The
So
raga is documented, not the kriti. Correct.
Matangi, Sri Rajarajeshwari and all are not there in there?
No.
That raga and, I mean, that is a song in Rama Manohari.
That's correct. It is there in the oral tradition. So the thing is, we just want to say that the oral tradition is there, the SSP is there, and the total body of compositions is available to us. And we, going with the utmost reverence for the oral tradition, we do acknowledge that, yes, Dikshitar is the first one to have composed in all the 72 ragangas.
Because I was surprised because I recall seeing it in Kriti Mala. That's why.
Kriti Mala is written by Ranga Ramanuja Iyengar.
Oh, yeah.
And it has compositions from all the traditions. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, very much. Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. If
audio
there are
links.
no more, yeah. Sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, we have any audio links for topics like grammar? No. No, I don't have any of those, but I'm sure you can find something if you searched the internet. So I don't have any of those. Yeah. I saw a comment here that Tayi Manavar episode in Sri Matrubhutam and Kanappa Nayanar episode. Actually, the thing is, like I said, right, the local traditions. Dikshitar had an eye for the local tradition, and he places them in the context of a pan-Indian tradition. That's the beauty of the whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So if there's no other questions, we can close. I hope we can all make it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And please do spread the link and get your friends to watch it as well. And we look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow.